My name is Dr. Mark Ware. I am an assistant professor in anesthesia and family medicine at McGill University. I practice pain management at the Montreal General Hospital, and I am the director of research at the Alan Edwards Pain Management Unit at the Montreal General. My interest in cannabis really arose when I was working in Jamaica. I was working in a sickle cell clinic, and I was aware that patients there who were presenting with painful episodes, painful crises, were reporting that if they used cannabis before the pain became too severe, they were able to curtail or to abort the crisis early. And initially I thought, as probably many people do, well, maybe it's just the marijuana makes them forget or they're getting high. But I began to explore the science behind it, and I realized that there was an enormous literature around the basic underpinnings of pain management and pain mechanisms. And part of the work that we do in the research that we're doing in Canada is to evaluate who are the patients that are likely to benefit, what are the likely risks, so that the patients and the physicians who are seeing the patient can make the decision with the best available evidence. I think that as we accept the medical utility of cannabis, we are going to start to dig more deeply into the cannabinoids, the key constituents of the marijuana plant that are providing this benefit. From a pharmaceutical company perspective, I think there's going to be an interest in trying to isolate those compounds, or trying to work within the endogenous cannabinoid system, that system of cannabinoids which is functioning in all of us all the time without any external influence. Trying to target that with medications that can upregulate the level of cannabinoids in our bodies, that can eliminate the breakdown of cannabinoids. So perhaps getting a cannabinoid effect without really taking in a cannabinoid, but by enhancing our own endogenous levels. So I think that's one area pharmaceutical industry is going to be taking. I think another area is trying to improve the overall quality and the regulation of herbal cannabis, because there are patients who realize that this is an effective way for them. I think if we can do larger studies of safety, and we can be really reassured that if over long term this is a safe medication, if quality issues can be resolved so that we know exactly where it comes from, we know the THC and cannabinoid levels of the plant, we can be reassured that the levels of other agents is non-toxic, and we can be reassured that the quality of the plant product is safe. Then it's going to be a question of supply, it's going to be a question of monitoring, it's going to be a question of regulating the process so that physicians are comfortable participating in this. Right now, as I understand it, in Canada and from what I understand in the US, it's very much a program of physicians authorizing patients to possess the drug. It's not a prescription drug, marijuana. The cannabinoids are, and there are several prescription cannabinoids. Not many physicians even realize that these exist, so there's a lot of work to do even there. But to take the drug from being an authorized, non-approved substance to a prescription medication requires clinical trials, research, and so on. And I suppose, I don't know how realistic it is, but I think my vision would be that somebody will come along and invest in that process. If they're skeptical, it's usually because they don't really know a lot of the facts behind the reason for why I do what I do. And they're usually really responsive to learning a little bit about the cannabinoid system. They're very open to understanding that the endogenous cannabinoid system exists, that taking in plant-derived or synthetic or prescription pharmaceutical cannabinoids is modulating an existing system, that it's an important system for human physiology, and that really what we're doing with research is discovering new tools to try to utilize this system as a way of improving people's quality of lives. And that usually they recognize the fact that we are limited in terms of therapies that we have available. And I work in a chronic pain clinic, so we're limited in terms of pain therapies that we can offer to patients. So there's what's called a therapeutic need. An unmet therapeutic need. And so this is simply a new avenue that's opening up for us to explore. Now, some of the tools that we have to explore this avenue are what you might call blunt tools, single agent cannabinoids, synthetic single agent cannabinoids, herbal cannabis, through its delivery system, which may be considered a dirty one if you like smoking, or it's been cleaned up a little bit with vaporizers and so on, but it's still early days in finding other ways of administering herbal cannabis. But I think we're really at the beginning of a new way of thinking about disease and a new way of approaching it. So I think they're usually very grateful to have some knowledge and some explanation as to what the real basic science understanding is. And the other thing that I tell them is that there's so another stream coming into this, which is the patients stepping up saying, listen, I'm using this, and I have been using it for a long time. And when you couple the patient reports with the basic science knowledge that there's a mechanism for why they're telling us that it works, you get this beautiful sort of synchronicity of patients saying it helps, basic scientists saying, this stuff looks fantastic, you guys should study it in the clinic. And now we have the opportunity to do that with the existing pharmaceuticals, with herbal cannabis products that are quality controlled and so on. So it's more a question of saying we're not here to advocate that everyone's going to benefit. It's not a miracle drug for everybody, but there are clearly patients who may be cannabinoid responsive. Here are some tools to help you work with those patients and some ways that you can deal with and interact with them and educate them. For a lot of patients, for a lot of physicians rather, who are skeptical, it's because they don't know. It's because they feel like their patients are coming into them, telling them more about this than they know themselves. And that for many physicians is a little bit of a challenge to their egos, if you like. They feel like, hey, whoa, I should be the one with the knowledge. So they're very comfortable to get that information. And to that extent, we've begun a series of physician education programs in Canada based on the knowledge base that's now generated in the last 10 years in cannabis research, in cannabinoid research in general. We know way more now than we did 10 years ago. There are clinical trials in MS, in fibromyalgia, in rheumatoid arthritis, in cancer pain, in neuropathic pain, which didn't exist 10 years ago. So when you show them the data, they start to think, well, that's the language that I can speak. I get that now. So they begin to see the evidence, and that's important. So what we're doing is taking this knowledge and translating it out into the community, knowledge transfer, out to the primary and the specialist physicians in the Canadian landscape, from coast to coast through small case-based accredited CME activities, and this has been a fabulously successful project. It's fascinating to hear physicians come and sit around and tell stories that they've had and the successes they've had with some of the pharmaceutical drugs, with some of the herbal cannabis, with the medical marijuana programs, and have them interact and teach each other. It's been a very, very rewarding experience. In fact, the very first patient who told me that he used cannabis for medical purposes looked me right in the eye and told me that, and it struck me, and I thought, wow. Okay, and I believed him, and I went away, and as I said earlier, it's still something where I believe strongly that we have to listen to that voice. I think for a long time the medical profession has kind of preached from on high and said, this is what we think is right for you. Here we have, for various reasons, political, legal, whatever, a position where patients have come forward saying, this is working for me. And hearing those voices, hearing that, knowing that there's a bit of a barrier to the science, but knowing that it's overcomable, we can do it, that motivates me. And knowing that at the end of the day, a patient who has struggled with their physician, struggled with their family members because they perceive this as being a drug of abuse or a substance, they're worried about it. If they feel somehow legitimized by the fact that there are doctors and scientists who are studying this and feel that it is a potentially useful therapy, if they feel reassured, if the family says, okay, well maybe it's okay, and then I think we've done a good service.